President, before I begin, I want to acknowledge that this morning countless Floridians woke up to a world turned upside down in the wake of Hurricane Ian. Hundreds of thousands in Puerto Rico remained without power more than 10 days after the storm that ravaged the island. I want them to know that Vermonters will stand by your side as you rebuild your communities and your lives, and so will Republicans and Democrats in this chamber. I said that to a couple of dear friends of mine in Florida who are suffering from lack of power almost in the eye of the storm. Now, the continuing resolution we're about to consider contains $18.8 billion for the FEMA Disaster Relief Fund. It would bring available resources in the fund to approximately $35 billion to respond to these and other disasters. We likely aren't going to know the extent of the damage for several days. Certainly every time you watch the news, you hear of more damage. But I remind my colleagues that we are the United States of America. And I'm ready to work with my colleagues to respond with what is needed. I don't care whether a state is represented by Democrats or Republicans. You're part of the United States of America. And as chairman of the Appropriations Committee, I'll work with you during the months ahead to get the funds you need. Now, that's it. I'm glad that we've reached agreement to fund the federal government through December 16th. And I want to thank my good friend, Vice Chairman Shelby, for working on this. I especially want to thank Leaders Schumer and McConnell for their work and cooperation in reaching this point. They both understand the need to go forward. I'm glad that we're able to secure $1 billion to bolster Leahy ahead of the winter heating season. In my home state of Vermont, they'll receive an infusion of $5.7 million from this funding. Now that's going to go a long way to help families pay their bills when they're faced with rising fuel costs and plummeting temperatures. Help them not to have to make the decision, do I eat or heat? The bill also includes $12.35 billion in emergency assistance for Ukraine, $2.5 billion to support recovery efforts following the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire in New Mexico, $2 billion in community development block grants to help communities recovering from major disasters in 2021 and 22. I'm disappointed that some of my Republican colleagues blocked additional funding to combat COVID-19 or monkeypox. But as we see these problems in this country, I will continue to work with Republicans and Democrats to put that money in the omnibus. And finally, I want to be clear. This is only a temporary measure. As the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, I'm committed to completing the work of the committee before the end of this Congress. Running on autopilot after December with rising inflation would be irresponsible. It would leave priorities of both Republicans and Democrats underfunded, under-resourced. It would cost us a lot more in the long run. And the federal government funds programs that the American people rely on. We should do the job, all of us, all 100 of us, the American people sent us here to do. So as I said, I do want to thank Vice Chairman Shelby's staff. As I said earlier, I thank the Majority Leader and the Republican Leader for their help and cooperation in bringing this together. Charles Kiefer and Shannon Paterni, there are too many names to mention, but these are people who worked through recesses, weekends, long hours, long nights. I get to go home by mid-evening. They stay there most of the night to get it done. I'd ask consent that all the names of our staff be included in the record at the end of my speech. And thank you, Mr. President. And the continuing resolution is a strong bill. It's a bipartisan bill. I urge my colleagues to accept it, and I yield the floor.